The Silk Road was not a road. It didn't mainly sell silk. And nobody who actually walked it ever called it the Silk Road. That name was invented in 1877 by a German geographer who never set foot on it. So you'll find out what it really was. The network that carried plagues that killed a third of Europe, religions that reshaped continents, and inventions that quietly built the modern world. This is the story historians know. Almost nobody else does. Here's the first myth. There was no single road. There was no starting point, no finish line. It was a sprawling web of trails, mountain passes, and desert tracks stretching over 4,000 miles, from the rice paddies of China to the harbors of the Mediterranean. Most merchants never traveled the whole thing. A trader from Xi'an might go a few hundred miles, sell his goods to another trader, and go home. Goods passed hand to hand, camel to camel, city to city, sometimes taking years to cross the full distance. No single person saw the whole route. That's what makes this story so wild. Nobody was in charge, and yet it connected almost the entire known world. It didn't start with trade. It started with a hostage situation. In 138 BCE, a Chinese envoy named Zhang Qian was sent west by Emperor Wu to find allies against a nomadic enemy called the Xiongnu. He was captured almost immediately and held prisoner for 10 years. He escaped, kept going west anyway, and stumbled into kingdoms the Chinese court didn't even know existed, fertile valleys in what's now Central Asia, powerful horse-breeding cultures, distant trade networks already linking Persia and India. He brought back something more valuable, a map of the world China didn't know it was already connected to. That report is considered the true opening of what we now call the Silk Road. A failed spy mission accidentally became the blueprint for globalization. Yes, silk moved along these routes, and it was treated like currency, so valuable that Roman senators complained it was draining the empire's gold. Roman writer Pliny the Elder grumbled that Rome was hemorrhaging wealth to buy it. But silk was just the headline. Caravans also carried spices, glass, gemstones, gunpowder, paper, ivory, and critically, horses. Chinese armies needed the powerful horses bred in Central Asia. That single demand kept the trade routes running for centuries. And it wasn't only objects moving. Ideas moved faster than any caravan, and those ideas changed everything. Here's something most people never learn in school. The Silk Road is arguably the single biggest reason Buddhism became a world religion. Buddhism started in India, but it was merchants and monks moving along these trade routes who carried it into Central Asia, then into China, then into Korea and Japan. And later, Islam moved east along these same paths, eventually reaching deep into China and defining the culture of cities like Kashgar and Samarkand for the next 1,000 years. 4 major religions. One network of dirt roads and mountain passes. Nothing else in ancient history moved belief systems this efficiently. In the year 751, an army from the Islamic Abbasid Caliphate defeated Chinese forces at a battle near the Talas River, in modern-day Kyrgyzstan. It sounds like a footnote. It wasn't. Among the prisoners taken that day were Chinese papermakers, and their captors extracted the secret of paper production, a technology China had guarded for centuries. Within decades, paper mills appeared in Samarkand. Within a couple of centuries, papermaking reached Baghdad, then Cairo, then Muslim Spain, and from there, into the rest of Europe. Before this, Europeans and the Islamic world wrote on expensive parchment made from animal skin or costly papyrus. Cheap paper changed the economics of writing itself. It's a direct ancestor of the printing revolution that would follow centuries later, and it wasn't the only transfer. Gunpowder, first developed in China for fireworks and later weapons, moved west along these same routes and reshaped warfare across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. The concept of zero and the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, the numbers you're using right now without thinking about it, moved from India through Persian and Arab scholars, and eventually into Europe by these same trade connections. Every time you write a number, you're using Silk Road technology. Now here's the part almost nobody connects to the Silk Road. The Black Death. In the 1330s, a devastating plague broke out in Central Asia, likely near the region around Lake Izikul, in modern Kyrgyzstan. From there, it moved exactly the way goods always had, along Silk Road trade routes, riding in the fleas carried by rodents that traveled with merchant caravans and Mongol armies. By 1346, the plague reached Mongol forces besieging the Genoese trading post of Kaffa on the Black Sea coast. According to accounts from the time, The besieging army catapulted plague-infected corpses over the city walls, arguably one of history's earliest documented uses of biological warfare. Genoese traders fled by ship, unknowingly carrying the disease with them straight into Mediterranean ports. Within 2 years, the Black Death had killed an estimated 30 to 60% of Europe's entire population. The same network that carried silk, paper, and religious ideas across a continent also carried the deadliest pandemic in recorded history. Globalization's very first network came with globalization's very first pandemic, a pattern that should sound uncomfortably familiar. You've probably never heard of the Sogdians, but for centuries, they were the actual engine of the Silk Road. This Central Asian merchant people, based around cities like Samarkand and Bukhara, dominated trade for roughly 1,000 years. They weren't conquerors. They were professional cross-cultural operators, fluent in multiple languages, embedded in Chinese, Persian, and Turkic courts alike, running trading colonies stretched across the entire route. Sogdian letters discovered by archaeologists, some over 1,700 years old, read almost exactly like modern business correspondence, complaints about debts, updates on shipments, family news sent across thousands of miles. They were the quiet, unglamorous infrastructure that made the entire network function, and history barely remembers their name. So why don't we still use the Silk Road today? 2 forces killed it. First, the rise of the Ottoman Empire in the 1400s, which took control of key land routes, and made overland trade between Europe and Asia more expensive and politically fraught. Second, and more decisive, European sailors found a way around the whole problem. When Vasco da Gama sailed around Africa to reach India by sea in 1498, and when other explorers opened Atlantic and Pacific sea routes, merchants no longer needed the overland network at all. Ships could carry more cargo, faster, without crossing hostile mountain ranges or paying tolls to a dozen different rulers along the way. The age of exploration wasn't just about discovering new continents, it was about making the old Silk Road obsolete. An 1,800-year-old network faded not because anyone destroyed it, but because a faster alternative simply outcompeted it. Here's the twist. The Silk Road never really disappeared. It just changed shape. The exact same geography now carries oil pipelines, fiber optic cables, and international shipping lanes. China's massive modern infrastructure initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, is literally named after this ancient network, an explicit attempt to recreate it for the 21st century. Every time goods move from a factory in one country to a shelf in another, every time an idea spreads across a border faster than a government can react, that's the Silk Road pattern, just running on ships, planes, and the internet instead of camels. We call it globalization like it's something new. It's not. It's 2,000 years old, and it started on the back of a camel, carrying silk, ideas, and disease in equal measure.